At the start of the film, we see our protagonist, Emily, ask a man if there are taxis nearby. The man, named Gabriel, admits that he's not sure. He tries to walk away, but decides to help her out by giving her a ride to the hotel she is staying in. During the ride, Gabriel asks if Emily is from around there. Emily admits that she is from Paris, and it's the first time she's visiting Nantes. We find out that Emily is a designer that often works at home, but sometimes has to go out to meet new suppliers. Minutes later, Gabriel drops Emily off at her destination. Just before she enters the hotel, Gabriel stops her, and they exchange names. In a blink of an eye, we see them enjoying an evening date, sipping wine, and laughing together. At the end of the date, Gabriel takes Emily back to the hotel. She thanks him for a wonderful evening, and for making her stay in Nantes memorable. Gabriel tells her that he can make the evening more memorable, and leans in for a kiss. Unfortunately, Emily rejects the kiss, stating that it might be a bad idea to do that. We find out that both of them already have partners. Still, Gabriel insists that the kiss he wants to give is symbolic, a kiss free from consequences. Emily reveals that the reason she doesn't want to kiss Gabriel is because of a story, an event that happened to certain people she knows. She says it's a story that she can't tell, since it's too personal. Gabriel points out that he will never meet the people in the story, and he will likely never meet her again either. Gabriel is now curious and urges Emily to tell the story. Emily obliges and starts talking about a woman named Judith, a lab researcher who has a seemingly happy life. The scene shifts, showing the events of the story as Emily tells it. We find out that Judith's husband, Claudio, wants her to stop working. However, Judith doesn't want to be a housewife, since she has worked hard to achieve her position and is happy with her lifestyle. We also find out that Judith has a male best friend named Nicholas. She has known him since high school. They are close, to the point that they know each other's secrets. Since Claudio works every Sunday, Judith and Nicholas meet during this day, to hang out and catch up. One day, Nicholas's girlfriend moves to another country for a job. She breaks up with him, but they stay friends. At one point, Judith goes to Nicholas to check on his emotional state after the breakup. She is surprised that he's doing fine. However, whenever they are hanging out, she notices that there is something off about Nicholas. It is as if he is hiding a secret, something that has never happened before. One day, while teaching a class, Nicholas leaves the classroom for a few minutes to give Judith a call. He tells her that he needs to talk to her as soon as possible regarding something that has been bothering him. Judith agrees, and they meet later that day. When Judith finally arrives at Nicholas's place, she asks him what's wrong. Nicholas takes a while to articulate his problem, but it all comes down to one thing. He is feeling a strong longing for physical intimacy. In reality, he's sugarcoating the fact that he's having an unbearable dry spell. Judith asks if Nicholas is meeting someone new, perhaps a woman that can take care of his urges. He admits that perhaps that's what he needs to do, but he doesn't believe in meeting someone just for the sake of scratching an itch. Judith brings up hiring a Nicholas admits that he did that already that morning, but it was a disaster. He tells her about the strange experience of booking a hooker. We see a flashback of Nicholas going to a and being asked to shower first. When he arrives at the room where the girl is, he tries to kiss her on the lips. This is when he decides to leave without asking for his money back. After telling that story, Nicholas points out that he is incapable of engaging in any sexual acts without kissing his partner. That's why he believes that cannot satisfy his longing for intimacy. He thinks it is weird that he can't get in the mood without kissing. Nicholas brings up that there's a solution in his mind, but he is hesitant to bring it up. He believes it's something that will never happen. Judith insists he tells her, so Nicholas finally reveals his true intention for calling her. Nicholas suggests that Judith sleep with him, to cure his urges for intimacy. He thinks that since they have a close bond and understanding, he won't experience trouble getting into the mood. Judith is shocked by the proposal, just like any friend would be, if asked for such a favor. Moments later, Judith asks why Nicholas doesn't consider asking his other female friends for help. Nicholas responds by saying that Judith is the one who understands everything about him, and that he dares not ask other female friends. After a long pause, Judith finally agrees to Nicholas's request. She suggests they do it immediately, just to get it over with. The best friends awkwardly move to a different room. Judith sits down on the bed, and Nicholas slowly follows suit. Nicholas starts by asking Judith if he may touch her breasts, to which she gives her consent. Nicholas continues doing the same thing for a while, until he asks if his hand can go lower. Once again, Judith gives her consent. At one point, Judith gets up to get a glass of wine for both of them. It's clear that the buildup of sexual tension is making them nervous. When Judith gets back, both of them decide to undress and lie on the bed. After another long and awkward minute, Nicholas asks if he can kiss Judith. She tells him that she prefers not to kiss before doing the deed. This is because she might back out if she doesn't like the kiss. Nicholas is willing to risk Judith backing out, since he can't proceed any other way. Finally, the best friends kiss each other on the lips twice. The first time without tongue, and the second one with it. The kissing seems to be unending, and it's easy to guess what happens after that. The scene goes back to the present. We see Emily and Gabriel drinking some alcohol. She continues with her story, stating that she needs to finish it so she can go to bed early. Gabriel is all ears. The scene shifts back to the story. Judith and Nicholas meet again after a month. Nicholas breaks the awkward silence by asking how Judith is doing. He also reveals that he is now in a relationship. Judith seems conflicted, but she keeps her composure and asks whether Nicholas has fallen madly in love. He clarifies that he's not the type to have such intense feelings from the get-go, and he is still easing into the new relationship. He shows Judith a picture of his new girlfriend and describes how they always talk a lot. Judith changes the subject and asks if Nicholas has already satiated his longing for intimacy. At first, he tries to say it's gone, but later he admits that his thirst for intimacy is still there. Nicholas confesses that kissing his girlfriend feels different. He believes it's nothing compared to the kiss he shared with Judith. Judith also admits that intimacy with her husband has changed ever since she kissed Nicholas. She can't forget that moment, and she's worried that she might have liked the experience too much. Judith then suggests a ridiculous idea. She thinks that if she and Nicholas have sex again, then they will realize that the intimacy they shared is nothing special. Nicholas says he'll think about it. However, Judith is in a hurry. She wants to do it before she and her husband go on vacation. That way, she can resolve her conflicted feelings before the trip. Judith and Nicholas convince each other that having sex again is a wonderful idea. Nicholas suggests that they keep it short and mechanical, while Judith insists they do it on the floor, so it doesn't feel too comfortable. Fast forward to after the intimacy, Nicholas admits that it was even better than the last time they did it. Who would have guessed that doing it again would not solve anything? Not them, for sure. Judith admits that she also liked what they did, and she's angry at herself. She continues with the mental gymnastics and convinces Nicholas that they should do it more. Despite failing to achieve the desired results the first time, they repeat the same thing again. After an intense session, Judith and Nicholas decide it would be best to keep at a safe distance from each other for a few minutes. Otherwise, they will be all over each other again. However, just before parting ways that day, they shower each other with passionate kisses. While kissing, the two engage in more mental gymnastics, and trying to define their relationship. They both agree that they should stay friends, and that what they have is just a normal friendship, but at the same time, can't stop each other from crossing the boundaries of intimacy. Judith believes that their friendship will return to normal after a few days, and they will both laugh about it. Someone is laughing about this situation, for sure, but it's not them. The scene returns to the present, with Gabriel and Emily. Gabriel tries to order one last drink, but the waiter points out that they are already closing. Despite Gabriel's attempts to bargain, the waiter enforces the rule, since he doesn't want to compromise his job. Since it's already too late, Emily decides to invite Gabriel to her hotel room so she can finish telling her story. He sees the fabrics scattered across the room and compliments their design. Emily reminds him that she's not going to sell those fabrics to him, because that would mean exchanging numbers, and having the possibility of meeting each other again in the future. She insists that after finishing her story, they will never meet again. Emily is tired, so she lies in her bed, but unintentionally strikes a seductive pose. After realizing what she has done, she puts a pillow in front of her legs, to make sure that Gabriel focuses on the story and is not distracted by anything else. Gabriel tells Emily that after hearing about Judith and Nicholas's situation, he is reminded of a personal story. Emily gets curious and urges Nicholas to share it, unless it's also a long one. Gabriel reassures her that it's a very short story, and begins telling it. The next scene takes place 2 years ago, when Gabriel was visiting a museum. While there, he spots a girlfriend of a good friend. He tries to ignore her, since he is not comfortable mingling with partners of his friends. However, the woman spots him, so he has no choice but to interact with her. Gabriel finds out that the woman's boyfriend left her for another woman. She tells him that she is much happier now, and that she feels like she has regained a sense of independence. Shen then starts talking about not wanting to get tied down by a relationship. Instead, she wants to be more adventurous and surrender to pleasure when she wants to. Moments later, after saying that, we see Gabriel giving her a passionate kiss. Emily laughs at Gabriel's amusing story, but she also asks how it connects to Judith and Nicholas's situation. He points out that the woman in his story is now his long-term partner. Just like Judith and Nicholas, Gabriel did not expect an encounter like that to end up continuing for longer, to the point of falling in love. Emily continues her story, and we move to the next scene. Judith and Nicholas hadn't seen each other for a week, but now they are at a house party with a lot of guests. When Judith goes to the restroom, Nicholas follows her, and tells her that they need to talk. She insists that it's a bad idea, since there are people who might see them. He then brings her to a different room so they can talk in private. Nicholas confesses his feelings for Judith. He is certain that he is in love with her. However, he knows that it's not right for him to act on his feelings, so he requests that Judith reject him. He asks her to look him straight in the eyes and tell him she doesn't love him. However, she looks away from him and doesn't say anything at all. Nicholas tries another method. He tells Judith that he is going to kiss her, and that she should push him away to let him know that she doesn't want it. Judith nods, but when Nicholas goes in for the kiss, she doesn't show an ounce of resistance. For his final attempt, Nicholas removes Judith's top and leaves her exposed. Again, she doesn't say a word, or even get angry. With nothing else to do, Nicholas kisses her again, and they end up having sex. Meanwhile, at the party, Claudio looks around, trying to find his wife. After a while, she sees her emerge out of a room, along with Nicholas. The affair partners make up a poor excuse, stating that they were just talking about something that's not important. Sadly, Claudio believes their lie. The scene snaps back to the hotel room. Emily shares an interesting quote she heard from an old woman. The quote describes an ideal man as someone that she finds peace with, and he doesn't necessarily have to be her lover. Gabriel shares his own ridiculous quote, while he makes his way beside Emily. He tells her that a person can only be sensible if they are crazy. He admits, at some point, he has been crazy enough that his perspective becomes clearer. Emily and Gabriel are engaging in similar mental gymnastics to Judith and Nicholas. Emily points out that it's late, and that she is with a random man in a hotel room, which makes her crazy. On the contrary, Gabriel insists that Emily is sensible. It's easy to understand why he's saying this. Before anything else happens, Emily points out that she hasn't yet finished telling Gabriel the disastrous consequences of Judith and Nicholas's love affair. The scene transitions back to the story. We see Nicholas sneak into Judith's workplace. She takes him to the back of the laboratory, and they passionately kiss in front of shelves containing hazardous chemicals, a cinematic symbolism of how dangerous their relationship is. Later that night, we see Judith and Nicholas try to sleep beside their romantic partners. However, it's clear that the affair is weighing heavily on their minds. They are both thinking about how to proceed with their lives while keeping up the deception and lies. Judith and Nicholas's thoughts continue to wander, even until the next day while they are at work. Despite the guilt, uncertainty, and anxiety, they continue to meet and engage in sinful lovemaking. However, in the middle of passionate kissing, Judith stops Nicholas. She tells him that she needs to sleep with her husband that night. It's been a long time since Judith has had sex with her husband, so she feels the need to do it, to not feel like she's cheating. Once again, displaying her gold medal for mental gymnastics. Nicholas can't hide his jealousy after hearing Judith's plan. However, he recognizes that he has no right to feel such a thing. He then tells Judith that he is going to break up with his girlfriend. It's something that he should have done a long time ago. Judith is worried that Nicholas might feel lonely if he does that, but he insists that it's something that he must do. They both agree that their respective partners deserve better. In the next scene, we see Judith practicing what she would say if she were to divorce her husband. Sadly, she doesn't have the strength to go through with that revelation. She ends up continuing her daily life with Claudio like everything is normal. In the next scene, we see the cheaters again, together in bed. Nicholas asks what they'll do next, after revealing their affair. Judith admits that she can't leave her husband. She doesn't want to see him suffer because of her, as if what she's doing isn't bad enough. Later that night, Nicholas finally musters the courage to break up with his girlfriend, Kayline. He gives his version of the classic, "It's not you, it's me" speech. When Kayline asks if he met someone else, Nicholas admits that he did. He also reveals too much information regarding the situation, save for Judith's identity. Nicholas is surprised that Kayline is calm after hearing his reason for the breakup. She explains that she believes in fatalism, a philosophical belief centered around accepting the inevitability of bad events. She tells him that there is no point in pointing fingers and being angry. Nicholas finds it funny that he discovers something admirable about Kayline after breaking up with her. In the end, they decide to remain friends. In the next scene, Nicholas tells Judith about how he broke up with Kayline. They continue their conversation inside a hotel. Judith shares her thoughts about wanting her husband to find another lover. She thinks it would be better if he met someone else. Nicholas agrees, and even says that if Claudio were to have an affair, Judith wouldn't need to leave him because he would leave instead. The next day, Nicholas meets up with his ex-girlfriend at the airport. He has the audacity to ask Kayline if she wants to meet someone, a man better than him. He starts explaining his devious plan of getting Claudio to fall in love with someone else so he can leave Judith. He wants Kayline to be the person to seduce him. Kayline rightfully calls the idea terrible. However, Nicholas dismisses the comment and persuades her even harder, until she eventually agrees, but only because she wants to grant him his request. Poor Kayline deserves better than this. In the next scene, Kayline meets up with Judith in her home. They can't help but be awkward around each other, considering the situation. When Nicholas finally arrives, he and Judith begin explaining their plan to Kayline. They want her to go to his favorite place, so Claudio can see her reading a book about the popular composer Franz Schubert. They believe that if Claudio sees Kayline reading that book, he will strike up a conversation with her, and that will lead him to have an affair. They also tell her about Claudio's daily routine, so Kayline knows what time to execute the plan. Kayline agrees to do what they say, but she frankly tells them that their plan seems weak. Nicholas insists that it still might work. Later that night, Judith does some fortune-telling for herself, while Claudio reads a book beside her. She pretends to be upset by the outcome. When Claudio asks what's the matter, Judith tells him that the cards predict that he will cheat. Claudio reassures her that the cards are wrong, and he is unlikely to betray her. He is unaware of his wife's devious plan. The next morning, Claudio prepares to leave to go golfing. This is the day when Judith and Nicholas's plan is set to happen. That's why Judith is standing nervously, waiting for her husband to leave. Claudio kisses Judith before leaving, and reassures her again that the prediction last night is unlikely to happen. After Claudio leaves, Judith calls Nicholas to give him an update. During the day, we see Judith and Nicholas restless in their workplaces. At one point, Judith calls Nicholas to ask him if he's heard any updates from Kayline. Judith tells him that she hasn't heard from Claudio, and that he hasn't answered her calls. Nicholas thinks this is a sign that their plan went well. In reality, nothing that day went as planned. Emily explains what really happened. We find out that Claudio went back inside his home because he forgot his scarf. It was during that time that he overheard Judith calling Nicholas as they were discussing their vile plan. After hearing Judith's conversation with Nicholas, Claudio continues on with his day, but he can't focus on his work. Meanwhile, Kayline sticks to the plan and goes to the place where Claudio is supposed to go. When Claudio finally arrives, he sits next to Kayline and strikes up a conversation. He knows why she's there, but he continues talking to her anyway. However, at one point, he gets fed up with the facade and confronts Kayline, accusing her of having no shame. He reveals that he is aware of what's going on, but Kayline continues to play dumb. Eventually, the conversation escalates, and Kayline admits to helping out the cheaters. She argues that she's helping this for Claudio's own good. Naturally, he recognizes such garbage reasoning and gets upset. Kayline tries her best to make Claudio see Judith's perspective, but her words fall on deaf ears as Claudio walks out. When Kayline tries to call Nichols, her phone gets stolen by a passing thief. Poor Kayline can't get a break. Even while at work, Kayline tries to contact Nicholas, but she fails since she doesn't have his number memorized. Claudio doesn't return to his home for 3 days. When he finally goes back and sees Judith, he starts packing his things. When Judith asks where he's going, he tells her a lie. Claudio doesn't reveal that he is aware of her affair. Instead, he pretends that he met someone else and is leaving her, just like the cards predicted. Judith fails to act like she's hurt. She tries to look devastated, but her face shows that she's relieved. She thinks that her plan worked. The scene goes back to Emily and Gabriel as she finishes the story. According to her, Kayline eventually met with Nicholas and told him everything that happened. He, in turn, went to Judith to tell her what happened as well. They found out that Claudio returned to his family in Italy and became depressed. During a brief scene, Judith and Nicholas walk together as they discuss the aftermath of their affair. Nicholas thinks that what they did is a necessary evil. Judith, on the other hand, admits that she is burdened with heavy guilt, and that as long as Claudio is depressed, she won't be truly happy. In the hotel room, Gabriel asks Emily what she thinks about the story, and if she agrees with Nicholas regarding his comment about necessary evil. Emily thinks the opposite. She believes that the affair was a necessary good, because if it hadn't happened, she wouldn't have met her current husband, Claudio. Gabriel finally understands why Emily doesn't want to kiss him. She is afraid of hurting Claudio the same way that he was hurt by Judith. Still, Gabriel points out that what he is proposing is a quick kiss, not an intimate one. Emily argues that it's impossible to tell how a kiss will turn out before it's given. Gabriel puts on his coat and prepares to leave. This is when Emily changes her mind. She doesn't want Gabriel to have any regrets, and she is grateful for all his help that day. Therefore, she feels like she owes him a kiss, even one that she thinks she'll enjoy. After a long pause, Emily moves closer to Gabriel. She warns him that they must be aware of the consequence of even a quick kiss. She suggests that they kiss on the condition that, once it's over, they utter no words, and Gabriel immediately leaves. He can't help but admit that he likes the conditions. With that out of the way, they say their goodbyes and lean in for a quick kiss. However, just as anyone might have predicted, the kiss is far from quick. They share a long, passionate kiss. Fortunately, when it ends, they stick to their conditions. No words are exchanged, and Gabriel leaves the room.